Hello, everyone. It's Jocelyn Medrick. I am the Executive Director here at Great Marriages in Sheboygan. And our event for today is Perpetual Problems and Healthy Conflict. So you might be wondering how that's possible, but it is possible. For many people, conflict is not healthy. And we here at Great Marriages, it's our goal to teach you how to resolve conflict in a healthy manner. So we're going to talk about that today in this event and give you some ideas on how to do that, because conflict in itself is not bad in a relationship. It can actually make your relationship grow. So before we get into all that fun stuff, I'm going to just tell you a little bit about who we are and what we do here at Great Marriages. So let me just share this with you. There's our title, Perpetual Problems, and I'm going to give you 10 steps to healthy conflict resolution in a little while. But our mission here at Great Marriages is to prepare and strengthen relationships, enrich marriages, and keep families together. And our vision is a community of vibrant, strong, joyful, lifelong marriages. How do we do that? Our core program is called Couple to Couple Mentoring. The only cost for this program is $35 for an online assessment. So what happens is we have you take an online assessment, and then we pair you up with one of our fantastic mentor couples who work with you on average 8 to 10 weeks. And we use a curriculum called Prepare and Enrich for that program. We have monthly events. That's what we're doing right now. This is one of our monthly events. So every month we have 1 to sometimes 3 events, which you can find on our website on our events page, workshops. In the fall, usually the last weekend in August, typically, is when we will do our marriage retreat. And we haven't been doing corporate lunch and learns because of COVID, but that is another thing that we offer for organizations or businesses that support us. We will go in and do lunch and learns. And then we have a resource library right here in our office. We have hundreds of books, DVDs that you can come check out just like a regular library. This is our website. If you're not familiar, great-marriages.org. And you can also find us on Instagram and Facebook. So there are postings every single day on those social media platforms. So check those out. There's lots of encouraging information about relationships out there for you. So again, today, perpetual problems and 10 steps to healthy conflict resolution. So some of you may be wondering, what is a perpetual problem? What does that mean? Well, this term actually comes from the Gottman Institute. So if you are not familiar with the Gottman Institute, they are based on science. So the Gottman Institute is the culmination of Doctors John and Julie Gottman's life work as researchers, and they are also clinical psychologists. So their approach is decades, over 4 decades. You can see 40 years here, more than 3,000 couples. Their approach has been developed, and it's the most extensive study ever done on marital stability. So before we roll into the perpetual problems, I want to tell you the difference. What is the difference between a solvable or a perpetual problem? So a perpetual problem, if you think of the word perpetual, it just keeps happening. If you have ever listened to Love and Respect, they call it the crazy cycle. You just get on this crazy cycle and you can't get off of it. So they did Gottman Institute did a blog post that I'm going to share part of with you just to kind of explain the difference in a really clear manner. So when thinking about conflict in a relationship, it's important to ascertain whether the problem is solvable or perpetual. Get this statistic: 69% of relationship conflict is about perpetual problems. That's crazy. That's a lot. That's a high percentage of conflict in relationships, and they're perpetual, meaning you can't really solve them. All couples have them. Instead of solving perpetual problems, what seems to be important is whether or not a couple can establish a dialogue about them. Can you talk about them with each other in a healthy way? If you cannot establish such a dialogue, the conflict becomes what they call gridlocked. And gridlock conflict eventually leads to emotional disengagement. So that's where you're like, I'm done. I'm not even going to talk to you anymore because we can't even have a conversation. Okay, I think we've probably all been there at some point. So we're going to explain the difference between a solvable problem and perpetual problem and a gridlocked perpetual problem next. What is a solvable problem? A solvable problem can be about house cleaning, disciplining children, sex, in-laws, Solvable problems for one couple can be the exact same topics that could be perpetual problems for another couple. A solvable problem within a relationship is about something situational. So the conflict is simply about that topic, and there may not be a deeper meaning behind each person's position. So a solution can be found and maintained for a solvable problem. You can solve that problem together. Perpetual problems are problems that center on either fundamental differences in your personalities, there's probably many of those, or fundamental differences in your lifestyle needs. So all couples have perpetual problems. So if you're on this crazy cycle and you keep arguing about the same thing over and over, you are not alone. This is not just you. These issues can seemingly be about the exact same topics as what for another couple might be solvable. We just mentioned that. However, unlike a solvable problem, these are problems that a couple will return to over and over and over again. Okay, the last one is a gridlocked perpetual problem. These are perpetual problems that have been mishandled and have essentially calcified into something uncomfortable. When a couple tries to discuss a gridlocked issue, it can feel like they're spinning their wheels and getting nowhere. The nature of gridlock is that hidden agendas underlie the issue. Okay, so solvable, perpetual, and gridlocked are three different types of problems. The Gottman method focuses on building emotional intelligence and developing skills for managing conflict and enhancing your friendship. You want to be friends with each other to help couples create a system of shared meaning in their relationship. What matters is not solving perpetual problems, but rather the effect with which they are discussed. Okay, can you speak kindly to one another? Those types of things. The goal should be to establish a dialogue about the perpetual problem that communicates acceptance of your partner with humor, affection, even amusement if you can, to actively cope with the unresolvable problem, rather than allowing it to fall into the condition of gridlock. Gridlock discussions only lead to painful exchanges or icy silence. Okay, we do have an event called 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work that's coming up. So we want you to check that out and learn more from Gottman. So Jan and Roger Blanchard are a mentor couple of ours. You can see them in the photo here. They've been married 55 years. It'll be 56 years in 2022. They are helping couples every day. They have been a mentor couple for many years, and they've been helping couples for decades. They are certified to teach the Gottman Institute curriculum called 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. I just mentioned that. So what they are going to do is we have a little video of Roger and Jan. They're going to model for you what a healthy dialogue looks like. Okay, it's a problem, and they're going to model that dialogue for you. After the video, I will come back and we will go through the 10 steps for healthy conflict. So enjoy Jan and Roger.
Hi, we're Jan and Roger Blanchard, and we've been mentors with Great Marriages since 2009, and have done Prepare and Rich curriculum and some other curriculums even before that with other organizations.
And one of the things that one of the workshops we talk about is 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work by John Gottman, and so part of what we want to talk about is perpetual and solvable problems, because most couples get married not realizing that most of the problems are perpetual and recur again and again and need to be resolved as far as coping with them, rather than letting them get into a stalemate or a gridlock. And so we'll talk a little bit about how our lives have been affected by realizing that. You know, it's been important to know how to talk to each other. And when I first got married in the Ice Ages, I thought I could learn communication skills and everything would be solve problems and we'd have no difficulty in our marriage. And I think I soon discovered that there were issues, things that came up again and again, and it wasn't just communication skills that would work. So I think we've learned together about how to deal with our differences, um, how we grew up differently. So
When you, when we're in different rooms and talking to each other, maybe be upstairs and downstairs or two different rooms, and I want to say something to you, I get frustrated because what happens is that I don't know whether you really are hearing me. I know you listen to the podcasts with your hearing aids, and I don't know that you're doing that, so I can say things and you don't understand it, or if you do understand something, you have to take the podcast off and then we have to talk. And it's frustrating for me when that happens, and it's a problem that happens over and over again sometimes. That's one of the things. But you know, there's other times when we just are not really ready to talk and listen to each other and to share how we're feeling or what's going on with us. So there are times that we get into perpetual problems because we repeat ourselves over and over again in the same issue.
So we need to deal with that when it happens so that it doesn't turn into a traffic jam or a gridlock because it's happening so often and we don't really try to solve it. Sometimes that happens because it's important to me that I'm listening to something that I think is important to hear, and you're kind of interrupting that. But the communication skills of listening and making sure we're understood, that's the goal of communication.
So
if they're solvable, we need to solve them.
There's a difference between those solvable problems and the problems that happen over and over again, like a traffic jam, the perpetual ones. So I think the solvable ones are things that are a situation that's going on right now that we can solve, like what we're going to have for dinner. And one of us wants one thing and another wants another thing, and we can just say, okay, let's flip a coin and decide what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
But if it gets into what's important to us, very important to us, it becomes a perpetual problem. And in all marriages, there's probably about 69% of the time that people have those perpetual problems.
Isn't that amazing?
So we have to learn how to deal with them. We can't necessarily compromise, but we have to learn how to deal with them. And so it's a matter of learning how to cope with them.
So I've had to learn how you grew up because that's what I married into. And so people don't understand that you come from a different family, but that's why you married, so that you complement each other. How come you don't always compliment? Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, you know, you hit on the head, the point on the head, because what happens is that you grow up with things that you hear in your mind that you've been told over and over and over again, and it relates to what's going on with you. So for example, we were talking about this computer and what to do with the computer and how to get a new computer. And for me, it's important that I do research and that I do it right the first time, because don't touch it, you'll break it, or do it right the first time and then you won't have to do it over again, are messages that come through my head. So I need to know what I want and how we want to do it and have it all my ducks in a row before we buy the computer. For you, I don't think it's the same way. Tell me how it is for you.
No, I think I'm task oriented. I was told to do something and had to do it for approval. And so we had when I was a teenager, we had an acre garden, and I was the one who did the weeding and the harvesting, and so it was kind of a different experience for me growing up. So
tell me, with the new computer that we're talking about, we don't know what we're going to get exactly yet. What's your goal? What's your dream to do with the new computer? And then I'll share my dream, because that might relate to how we solve what we're going to do to get the computer.
Well, I am learning to do some craft skills, and I'm using videos on the computer. I download them and it's very slow. So I was wanting a newer computer. Ours is over 10 years old. And so I wanted, being task oriented or solution oriented, I wanted to have a faster computer that would help me do that easier.
Okay, and for me, there's so much stuff on our computer right now. I want to get rid of some of it, and let myself get rid of it because I know what's there that I don't want, and that's one of the things. And the other thing is I want to be aware that we're getting exactly what we want on the computer. I don't want somebody to take it away and change it, and then I get it back and I say, "Oops, that's not what I wanted." So I want to know what I want and have it done before we order the computer. And I know that that's probably illogical.
It's logical once I understand your reason. I didn't know really why it was. We've been to the store a couple of times and looked at computers, and I know we both agreed on what we want, but now the delay is understandable. And one way we've talked about it is the painter and the pointer, so that you tell your story and get to the point after you've set it up. And I like to get to the point. I do a lot of my thinking internally, and so I get to the point right away. And if you're not listening, or if I'm not listening, then we miss each other. And so I think that's how we were raised too.
So here's a possibility. I mean, I know that we have to learn how to cope with each other with those things, but here's a possibility. Since I want to get rid of some of the stuff on the computer before we actually give it to whoever we're giving it to, Best Buy or whatever, can we get some jump drives, and I can delete and put those things onto the jump drive and get them off of the computer,
Organize them,
and
put them in
organize
the
them
folders.
a little bit,
Yeah.
maybe not all of them, but some of them a little bit. And then when we go to our computer guru, then we can say, take these things off, put these things on,
Mm-hmm.
and that will be helpful to me. So I guess what we're talking about when we talk about perpetual problems is it's something that relates to the core inside of us and things that we are not willing to change.
Core values.
Our core values. What we're not willing to change, and what we are willing to change, and how we can cope with each other so that we can not get into that gridlock of, no, you're right, not right, I'm right, kind of thing.
You know, there are actually times when I get quiet and you see that, and that can lead to gridlock, where I just turn away and even though you want to talk about something, I don't want to at the time, and so it's important that we do open up and share what's important to us.
And the other thing I'm thinking about is that not just for us, but for other people, perpetual problems can deal with things like how we raise our kids. Who's a disciplinarian? How much discipline should we give the kids? There can be a concern about those differences, and it can relate to the core values. Also can relate to the dreams of what they want in their future.
Yeah, when I was working, I would come home at night, and you did a lot of the parenting, and so we had to really talk about what was going on with the kids in order to come to some kind of decisions about what to do with them.
And money can also be one of those perpetual problems that people have, whether it's us or other people, that, you know, who's the saver and who's the spender, and how do we spend our money, and who's in charge of the bank account or who's in charge of the bills. Those can become core issues for families. So I guess when we talk about perpetual problems, we're talking about things that we have to work out between the two of us and really listen to each other and be willing to give a little bit here and there for those problems.
Because you had money was more important in your home than it was. In our home, we didn't really pay much attention to money. We were working class, and so I'm so glad that your parents paid attention to providing for the future. So one of the important things that we want to get across today is that when I want attention or want to know something from Jan, I need to make a bid. I ask her a question or pay attention to her, and she needs to respond to that and not turn away, or it can turn into a silence that is not, it doesn't help closeness.
And the other thing I think is that when I listen to you, or when you listen to me, that we can influence each other, and that we can share thoughts and then come together with some things that we both believe are okay with our core values.
So that I cannot believe that I have the only solution, that I'm only right. I have learned a couple of things from you. Well, gridlock really is an issue, that if you don't resolve solvable issues, they become unsolvable, and they turn into gridlock, and it's avoidable. You know, that's, I mean, once you realize, you have to recognize the difference so that you can solve solvable problems.
We do understand each other, but there, you know, even in marriages of 55 plus years, there's always going to be perpetual problems that we have to figure out. Okay, am I the problem for him, or is he the problem for me, or are we both problems for each other? And how can we work it out so that even though there is a problem in what we each believe in our values, we can still come together and love each other and care about each other enough so that everything works out and that we are able to live with each other.
Okay.
So that paying attention doesn't mean just hearing what's said. It means really listening and hearing what's underneath what's said. And that's why your past experiences as a child and growing up, and your dreams and hopes for the future, are all related to what become problems that are harder to solve, or are not solvable but need to be coped with in a family.
So every year we do a workshop on the 7 principles for making a marriage work, and you can look on the website for Great Marriages to find out when that's going to be.
So thank you so much to Roger and Jan again for sharing their wisdom of 55 years of marriage and what they've learned working for the Gottman Institute and doing the workshops through there. So next we're going to move on to quickly go through 10 steps to healthy conflict resolution. Where this comes from is from our mentoring program curriculum, which is Prepare and Enrich. You can see the logo there, Prepare and Enrich, Building Strong Marriages. So this is part of the Prepare and Enrich curriculum. So if you went through mentoring with us, you will learn these steps and they'll have you practice. And it's not as easy as it looks. My husband and I did mentoring, and the first step is to set a time and a place for discussion. So that's an easy one. But the second one is where it was kind of difficult. Define the problem or the issue. Okay, that doesn't sound so hard, but you need to be really specific. Some of the things we came up with were too general. And of course, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but a good example of a specific problem or issue would be the one here. I would like a date night every single week, and it's not been happening. So that's a problem for one person at least, maybe not for the other. So you want to define the problem and be very specific. If it's too general and you start talking about all kinds of other things when you're trying to deal with this, you've got to go deeper and you've got to define the problem very specifically. So that's step 2. Step 3, what is your hope or dream regarding this issue? So write them down, partner 1, partner 2. What do you hope to accomplish here? What is your dream about this issue? Okay, so here's some questions to help you clarify this. Help me understand why this hope or dream is important to you. And then listen. Don't interrupt them. Listen closely to their answer, because maybe you've never asked, or maybe they've never shared. Why is it so important that we have a date night every week? Why is that important to you? Okay, listen to their answer. Is there a history or a story behind this for you from your past? I mean, maybe one person's parents had a date night every week and they had an amazing marriage. You don't know what has happened in the past to that person to make them feel this way. So listen to their history. And the last question you should ask one another, what are your fears if you cannot get this hope to become a reality? So what are you afraid of? Like, I'm afraid if we don't have a date night every week, we're going to become disconnected. You may have small children. It's already hard. There might be a lot of reasons that you're not even aware of that person is afraid of. So ask yourselves those questions, write down your hope and dream, and then listen to each other. Step 4, list the things you've done in the past to resolve this issue. If it's a perpetual problem, you've probably already had this issue come up that were not successful. Okay, so list 2 things. Try to get 2 things that you've tried in the past to resolve this that were not successful. Okay. Step 5, then you want to brainstorm 8 new possible solutions to the problem. Sometimes it's hard to come up with 8. Actually, I think Prepare and Enrich has 10, and I put 8 on here because it's, for us, it was really hard to come up with 10 possible solutions. So I went to 8. Don't judge or criticize any of these suggestions at this point. Just jot down anything you can think of that might help. It can be silly, it can be goofy. If you can't get to 8, just write down 8 ideas. Okay, it just gets you thinking, because sometimes one person thinks, well, I know my solution is the right one, so this is what it should be. But if you have to think of 8, then it opens your mind up a little bit to other possibilities. Step 6, discuss and evaluate each of your possible solutions. Okay, so be as objective as possible. Talk about how useful and appropriate each suggestion feels for resolving your issue and getting your hope or dream to come true. Okay, so take number 1 that you wrote down and discuss it. How do you feel about that? I don't know. How do you feel? Go through what each of you think about each of the possible solutions. Okay, step 7, now you have to agree on 1. So just pick 1 to try. Okay, we're trying to get you to have a discussion that's not heated, and that doing it in this diplomatic way just takes the emotion out of it. So now you both have to agree on picking 1. That's your step 7. Step 8, agree on how you will each work towards the solution you choose. So maybe you want to think about it for a minute, write it down, and then share it with each other. This is what I'm going to do. You know, maybe you picked a solution as you will each plan every other week. So partner 1 would say, you know, I'll make the reservations every other week. Whatever it is, you need to brainstorm for yourselves and then agree on how you're going to work towards it. Step 9, you're going to set up another meeting to discuss your progress in 2 weeks. So put a date, put a time, put a place, and put it on your calendar. Okay, we put it right into our shared calendar. If you don't have a shared calendar, you have something on your wall, whatever, put that you're going to have a follow-up meeting in 2 weeks. So that gives you 2 weeks to see how you're doing. Did we have a date night? I'm just using that as an example, whatever it is. Maybe it's, you know, not yelling when the kids talk back, or whatever it might be. There's tons of different problems you can have in a relationship. So set up your progress report, we'll call it. And then step 10 would be to compliment each other for whatever progress you see in them. So if this is an issue that's been perpetual, it's come up over and over, or even if it's not, maybe it's a solvable issue, maybe it's a very easily solvable issue after you go through these 10 steps. Compliment each other. If you notice them making progress, doing something differently that you guys agreed upon, then please praise each other and please compliment each other. Please say how grateful you are to your spouse for making those changes. Okay, so those are the 10 steps. We are going to attach the 10 steps for you. So you can, if you have a printer, you can print those out and use the 10 steps. You want to print them out. You want to write these things down because it's just helpful to see it on paper. And when you're brainstorming, it's much easier to have it down on paper. Now, I will say, when you reevaluate in 2 weeks, if you have not had success with the solution that you chose, look at your list of 8 brainstorms and try another one. don't give up just because you're like, well, that didn't work. I guess that's never going to happen. You can get that kind of attitude and give up, but try something else. That's the point of this. Go back, do it again, work on it with each other, and then set up a time again in 2 weeks to evaluate your progress. Okay. So those are the 10 steps. If you're having trouble and you're constantly getting into arguments and you can't even speak civilly to each other, or you're just having an issue, you wish you could use someone else as a sounding board, please look into our couple to couple mentoring program. That's what we're here for. Our mentor couples have to be married a minimum of 15 years. Most of them have been married 30, 40, 50 plus years. So we have a lot of experience with our mentoring. So you can go to great-marriages.org/mentoring. There's a description of the mentoring program, and then there's a form that you can fill out to register for mentoring. So if you feel like you just need a little extra help, please let us know. We are also going to attach, and if you're watching this after the event, like you didn't get the event email, but you're watching later, these will be, when we post these on our website, we put them on our resources page, and there's one of the boxes says Great Marriages event videos. So eventually, if you watched it now, you're going to be able to go to the website, click on the resources tab, and then I think it's the top left box says Great Marriage Event Videos. And then these handouts will be underneath the video that you can click on them if you didn't get the email that I'm talking about. So other things that we're going to attach for you would be about how to take a timeout. Okay, I'm not going to go through all the steps for you now, but I want you to look at that, because if you're trying to work through this and all of a sudden there's an escalation and you're yelling at each other, or voices are raised, or you're getting really irritated because this keeps happening, then take a timeout. Okay, and we have attached the steps, and that's also from Prepare and Enrich, from our curriculum, how to take a timeout. And then the other thing we're going to attach is seeking and granting forgiveness. So if you have hurt one another, how do you seek and how do you grant that forgiveness? And we will actually be having an in-person event in March about finding forgiveness and the 5 languages of apology. So we do a lot with the 5 love languages, but we are actually going to do an event based on still Gary Chapman's information, but he has a book called The 5 Languages of Apology. So we're going to go through that, and you can take the profile on what kind of apologies are acceptable to you and your spouse or your loved one, or if you're not even married and you come and you can use this in any relationship. So you can register for that event at great-marriages.org/events. So we want to thank you so much for joining us. We give thanks for Jan and Roger for sharing their expertise. Also included in your email was an evaluation. So please click on that link and fill out the evaluation so you can tell us what you thought about this information, if there's anything we missed that you would like to know or that we could do better. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, and come and see us. The office isn't open every day right now, but if you make an appointment with us, you can look through the library, check out books, or sign up for that mentoring program. So we hope this has been helpful to you. We hope that you can speak kindly and work through your perpetual problems, and then hopefully more of those might become solvable problems. So thanks for joining us, and we will see you soon.